Hey guys, it's Psycho Sister here, and I wanted to record a video of me saying a story I made. Um, this was a request from my friend. If you guys want to request any stories for me to make, I will gladly make them and I will gladly say them. As you know, I can't stick with one thing for this channel, so this is my next thing that hopefully I can do a series on. So, tell me down below in the comments the stories you want me to do. And so, that's it. Laughs of teenagers sounded throughout the forest. 4 teenagers sat around a campfire. "Do another one, you're so good with these impressions," a girl said. She had big curly hair and freckles across her face. The girl took a sip of her beer. "What impressions? This is just my accent," a boy with thick British accent replied. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. A red and black flannel gripped his body, making his mediocre muscles stand out a bit more. "Oh, come on, Daniel. You do the best impressions of Gordon Ramsay." A girl with straight red hair smiled. She wore cut-off shorts with a crop top saying, "Eat pussy, not animals." "Shut up, vegan," a buff boy said as he took a sip of his beer. His eyes were a deep brown color and his head was shaved at the sides. "I'm not vegan, I'm vegetarian, Blake," she hissed. "Hey, don't fight. Hold a higher standard for yourself, Veronica," the girl with freckles said. "Oh, come on, Jenny. Have him be accountable too," Veronica said. "Oi, Blake, apologize to the vegan," Daniel smirked. "I apologize for calling you vegan instead of vegetarian." He stuck his tongue out at Veronica. She growled lowly. "I'm going to break a beer bottle on your head," she yelled. There suddenly was a loud howl. Everyone stopped and turned to look at the dark forest. It was silent for a bit, till a loud crack sounded. They all jumped in unison. "It's just the fire," Daniel mumbled. "Maybe it's time to get to bed," Jenny said. "Who's sleeping with who?" Veronica asked. "I was thinking the 2 boys sleep together, and I and you sleep together." Jenny smiled. "I'm not sleeping with a stick," Blake growled. "Shut it, twat waffle." Daniel rolled his eyes a bit. "Listen, I'm not sleeping with a man. I don't want any of you making moves on me. Besides, I and Veronica have slept together multiple times." Jenny slowly grabbed the water pitcher behind her. "Someone turn on the flashlight. I'm putting the fire out." Daniel picked up a flashlight and turned it on. Jenny tossed the water on the fire as it hissed. The fire slowly receded and became nothing more than a pile of charcoal and burnt sticks. "I'm not sleeping with this pansy," Blake stated, crossing his arms like a child. "Sleep on the floor. We don't want to hear you complaining," Veronica said. There was a loud growl coming from behind the teenagers. They all turned, looking into the dark. Daniel slowly shined the light to where it came from. Bright red eyes looked back at them, reflecting the light from the flashlight. They stood there, fear in all of their eyes like a deer in the headlights of a car. Finally, after what seemed like forever, Blake bolted towards the camper. The creature turned quickly and howled loudly. It was a deep howl, different from a wolf. The other 3 teenagers ran after him. He opened the camper door quickly and ran in. The 3 teens ran in after him. They slammed the door, locking it. They were scratching at the door, and a large claw broke through. Blake screamed, not knowing what else to do. Daniel grabbed a knife from the cupboard and ran towards it. He slammed the knife into the creature's car. There was a loud yelp from the creature. Blood poured down the door as the claw was pulled out of the door. They all stared, not knowing how to deal with the situation. Daniel looked back at them, panting a bit as if he had run a mile. "Let's get to bed," he stated. "It's best to sleep for today." Everyone looked at each other, a little shocked about what just happened. Veronica stifled a laugh and then smiled. "You screamed like a little girl, Blake," she yelled. Blake growled, balling his fist up. "Shut up. He screamed too," Blake yelled, pointing at Daniel. "Yeah, but he stabbed it." Jenny smiled a bit. Daniel nodded and slowly put the knife down. He then turned around and walked to where his bed was in the camper. He lay down and covered up. "Who's sleeping with who?" Veronica asked yet again, ignoring Blake's tantrum. "I'll sleep with Jenny," Daniel said and blushed a bit. "That works perfectly. You and Blake sleep together, and Daniel and I sleep together." Jenny clapped her hands and smiled. Veronica huffed and looked over at Blake. He straightened his back and gave her a smirk. "Don't try anything," she hissed. She turned around and walked over the couch in the trailer. She slowly pulled on it and a bed came out. Jenny smiled and walked over to the already made bed in the other part of the camper. She laid down and got cozy. Daniel slowly came over and slipped into the soft blankets next to her. He turned on his side, his face towards the wall of the camper. Blake shut off the light and let out a small giggle. "Hey, Jenny?" Daniel turned to face her. Jenny laid on her back and stared at the ceiling. "What was that thing?" he asked. "I don't know." Jenny smiled softly. She looked at him and grabbed her phone. "Unfortunately, we have no service out here, and we can't really get to the truck to drive off. Anyways, we'd attract too much attention if we did get in the truck and latch the trailer on quickly." She slowly unlocked her phone. "Well, maybe that thing was a bear," he mumbled. "No bear has red eyes, Daniel." She shook her head and giggled, let out a long sigh, and then turned on his side again, facing away from her. She closed her eyes, feeling at peace while surrounded by her friends. They all slowly fell asleep, almost forgetting about what happened. Jenny was awoken by a loud noise, and then the entire bed shaking. She opened her eyes to see the entire camper was shaking. She sat up quickly and looked at Daniel. "What's going on?" she heard Veronica yell from the other side of the camper. Jenny got up quickly and stumbled towards the window. She opened the blinds and peered through. "It's that creature again!" she yelled. The creature turned the camper over on its side, waking Daniel and Blake. Jenny panted, some luggage and blanks falling on her. The beast tore into the door once again. It pulled the door off. Veronica grabbed a knife and tried to ward it away. The lights in the camper flashed, blinding both Jenny and the others. Veronica stabbed at the beast, and one swipe was swooped up by the beast and her claws in the teeth of the beast. "Veronica!" Blake yelled. He grabbed her hand and tried to pull her away from the beast. "Help!" she yelled, desperately fighting against the beast's tugs. The creature ripped Veronica out of Blake's hand and soon pulled her out of the camper. She screamed loudly as the beast ran away with her. Jenny quickly got up and tried to crawl out of the camper. "We have to get her!" she yelled. Daniel grabbed the flashlight he had while Blake stared. "Wait, we need some sort of plan. Didn't you see what the beast did to her?" Blake asked. Jenny shook her head and then got out of the camper. "No, we need to go after her before she dies," she yelled. She looked and saw she was off the ground. She jumped off and landed on her hands and knees. Daniel and Blake followed after her. She grabbed the flashlight from Daniel's hand. She pointed it towards the ground. There were large footprints and tracks. She looked back at Daniel and Blake. "Let's go," she ran, not being able to wait any longer. Daniel and Blake followed. "Shouldn't we, make some sort of plan?" Blake said yet again. "We don't have time," Daniel replied. "Did anyone bring any sort of weapons?" "I have my pocket knife, but nothing else," Blake mumbled. "My taser is in my purse back at camp." Jenny made sure that the light revealed both the tracks and the forest. She stopped, seeing that they were at the foot of the cave. She turned and looked back at Blake and Daniel. They panted a bit, despite running only a little bit. She was used to running like this. She had run like this since she was a child. Now wasn't the time to reminisce on other things. She just stared straight forward. Her legs shook, and she almost didn't want to go forwards. "Come on." Daniel stepped forward and walked in front of her, taking lead without the flashlight. She followed him, walking into the cave and being careful of what could happen. Blake stayed close behind them, not wanting to be in any more danger than they already were. Everything seemed silent. It was almost peaceful. Jenny picked up the pace, thinking about what might have happened to her friend. She looked at Daniel. She opened her mouth to speak, only getting out a small noise before she heard a loud growl. She stopped and shined the flashlight where the growl came from. In front of them was a large creature. It was hunched over and eating something bloody. She tried to see what it was, but the creature moved in her way of sight. It was fully visible in the light. It had gray hair with blue leopard-like spots on its back. Its eyes were sharp and cat-like. It had claws as large as a bear's. The creature stood up on its hind legs and growled yet again. Strawberry red blood was smeared all over the creature's face. The creature lifted its paw up, about to swing at them. "Run!" Blake yelled, turning around quickly. Daniel had turned too, ready to run, but Jenny stood in place. She was frozen in fear, as if she couldn't knock herself out of the trance. As the paw came closer and closer to her, she heard her friend's voice. "Wait!" Veronica yelled from behind the beast. The beast stopped and backed down. Veronica slowly came out from behind the monster. "Hi, guys. It's nice to see you." She blushed a bit. "Allengard is not a bad creature." You named it? Blake yelled. Daniel just stared, shocked at everything he had seen. What's going on? Jenny questioned. Veronica bit her lip. Well, it's a little hard to explain. You know how I said I didn't have any parents? She asked. Everyone looked at each other. They then turned to Veronica. He's my parent. She looked at the ground, waiting for a response. Silence filled the room. What the fuck? Jenny finally said. You kept this big of a secret? You screamed for help when this thing captured you, and you had us all worried only for you to tell us this thing raised you? Well, I wanted to come here in hopes it'd capture me. I just didn't want to make it seem fishy, so I screamed. She looked at the two boys who were in awe. Also, it caught me off guard. Jenny growled, not knowing what to say. Well, let's go back to camp. We'll leave you with your parent. Daniel turned around. I need to sleep anyway. Wait, I can't go back to camp with you, she mumbled. And you can't go back either. Why not? Jenny asked, still irritated. Well, I can't let anyone know about this. I can't trust any of you, and you probably will tell everyone you know, she said. Jenny looked at the two boys. We're not staying, Blake growled. You have to. If you don't say, I'll send him to hunt you down, one by one, she stated. Fine. You go ahead and do that. Just watch when I blow this thing's head off, Blake growled. You really expect us to be scared of this thing after you just said he's your parent? Jenny asked. You were afraid before. Listen, you can't go back. It's nice here anyways. You don't have to worry about anything, she said. Jenny grabbed the two boys' hands. Jenny started to walk out of the cave. Is she really going to send that thing after us? Blake asked. What's the worst it'll do? We stabbed it with a knife and it got all scared and ran, Jenny said. They all walked back to camp. What will we tell her friends? Blake asked. Jenny looked at him. We are her friends, Daniel said. Jenny looked down at the floor, wondering what had just happened. Daniel put his hand on her shoulder. We should just go home now. Leave the trailer here and we'll get it towed and stuff, he mumbled. Jenny nodded and slowly walked to her truck. They all stopped as they heard loud huffs behind them. Suddenly the creature lunged at Jenny. She stopped, not having time to react. Blake pushed her out of the way. The creature got on top of him and bit down on his head. Blake screamed, but soon was silenced by the creature. Jenny and Daniel quickly ran in the truck. Jenny looked around for the keys. I forgot the keys. They're in the camper, she yelled. You have extras in here, remember? He said as he opened the glove compartment and started to look for the keys. He then pulled out some and gave them to her. Jenny put the keys in the ignition as the creature ran towards the car. She turned the car on and drove off frantically. She drove out of the forest and into the middle of the street. She started to drive home. She breathed hard and looked at Daniel. Blake, he's dead, she mumbled. Daniel nodded and bit his lip. It's all right. He saved us by doing it. Daniel seemed to hold back his tears. The creature ran into the road and was in front of them. Jenny gasped and swerved the car as she hit a pole harshly. The telephone pole fell onto the car. Jenny looked around her now squished car. She breathed hard and looked to see if she was bleeding and her leg had been crushed by the pole. Then she turned around, about to ask if Daniel was all right, but was met with a horrific sight. He had been crushed by the pole. She was overwhelmed with emotion. She opened the car door and got out, pulling her leg out of the car. She whimpered as tears streamed down her face. She looked at the creature. Are you happy now? She yelled. She stood straight up and limped towards the creature. I'll kill you, she yelled. The creature lunged towards her. She was soon trying to fight back as the creature bit down on her torso and shook her around wildly until she stopped moving. Veronica walked over and looked down at them. I told you. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed. I know I messed up a couple of times, but don't mind that. Subscribe and like the video, comment down below if you want me to do any more, and comment some prompts, because I'm pretty bad at coming up with ideas myself that aren't based off of my two main characters. Bye!